Michael Feinstein is a multi-platinum selling artist with 5 Grammy nominations in recognition of his great talent and lifelong fascination with the popular music of the 20s, 30s, and 40s. He is a conductor and musical archivist whose mission is to preserve the great American songbook. He is known in the industry as the keeper of the flame of these great American standards. And after 30 years of performing from Broadway to the White House, sharing the stage with the industry's most sought-after artists, he continues his mission to keep the legends alive. Michael, thank you so much for being with us here today at the beautiful Kravis Center for the Performing Arts. So thank you for being with us.
It's truly my pleasure.
And we feel like, we are so connected to you at PBS because we get to enjoy you not only on our station, but also, in our backyard right here at Kravis. So it's really a pleasure to see you and to be able to share with our audience your story. You were born in Ohio and raised in Ohio, and at 5 years old, magically started to play the piano by ear. How do you explain being a child prodigy?
I started playing piano just instinctively, and I believe in reincarnation. I believe that we come back many times, and I think that I had a previous experience where I had musical skill and I came in with it again. Our society is one of the few that does not believe in reincarnation, because some people think that I'm really cuckoo. But how else can I explain having had great musical ability at even earlier than 5? My parents said that when I was 1.5 and 2, I already had musical ability, and so I think that there is something otherworldly about it.
Right, like an old soul.
Yes, it was very natural. I literally sat down and started playing with both hands. I could immediately play songs without any lessons. I knew how to play the piano, just like that. So.
And do you remember the first song that you played?
I think the first song that I played was Do, Re, Mi from The Sound of Music. Do, a dear. But I played it with chords. My mother came in from the kitchen listening to me and said, "Where did you learn that?" My father could play 3 songs on the piano. She said, "Did Dad teach you that?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, where did you learn it?" I said, "I made it up." She said, "No, you couldn't have possibly." She sent me to my room without dinner for lying.
Oh, you got in trouble.
Yes, so.
But, later on in your life, and as the story unfolds, as you talk to us, people will understand why you believe in reincarnation, because so many coincidences happened in your life that it's hard not to believe that, because it seemed like you had a guiding light throughout your life. You, at 20, moved to Los Angeles, and
Yes.
after being a young child collecting records while other children were collecting stamps and baseball cards, you would go to the Salvation Army and Goodwill and look for old recordings. And I just think that was also kind of fascinating, because what led you to that kind of hobby as a young person?
I always had an interest in the past. Any place that I go, I think of it filtered through what it used to be. I don't know why, but I'm interested in history, especially musical history. And when I started learning songs at the age of 5 and 6, I wanted to know where they came from. And if I found a piece of sheet music, it had the copyright date and it had the names of the writers and the stars or the movie or show that it came from. Those things always mattered to me. And I remember my father took me to Salvation Army when I was 5, and he gave me $1, and I was able to buy 20 old 78s for $1. And I just started listening to these songs, and they felt very much a part of me.
Familiar, right?
Absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
And now your collection is something that you actually want to donate to the Library of Congress eventually. So that is quite amazing. Tell us about your collection today.
In the years that I've been on this earth, I've seen such an incredible change in the world of culture in our country. A sad change, where so much of it has been deemed disposable and has indeed been thrown away. And so things that were once commonplace are now hard to find, and it is up to archives and institutions to preserve, among other things, our musical history. So I started collecting not only records and sheet music, but orchestrations and ephemera relating to songwriters and American popular song. And so I now have a collection of many unique artifacts that might otherwise have been thrown away. I've literally found things in dumpsters. I have found things in garages in different cities that were about to be thrown out. And consequently, I have original manuscript orchestrations made for Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, Judy Garland, Ella Fitzgerald, Bing Crosby, Billy Eckstein. I have the manuscript copies of these things, and so I want to make sure that they will be around after I'm gone, because now that I'm conducting, I bring out these charts and I perform them with other soloists and with orchestras, so they live again.
Amazing. That's amazing. Well, I'm glad you're doing that. So many times when I read through your story, I kept saying, coincidence, or what was that? But when you moved to Los Angeles, you met your idol, and it really was a landmark moment for your life. Talk about the first time that you met Ira Gershwin and what that experience was like for you.
Absolutely. From the time that I was 8 or 9, I was obsessed with Gershwin music. I heard Rhapsody in Blue, and it was life-changing for me. I felt something in my being that I had never experienced before with music. So by the time I was 16 or 17, I had amassed a pretty big collection, as big as I could, in Columbus, Ohio, of Gershwin music and memorabilia. I had a very strong instinct to move to Los Angeles at the age of 20, which I did, even though it would have made sense for me to go to New York with my musical interests. And less than a year after moving there, I met Ira Gershwin through a series of coincidences. I went to a psychic who someone in a restaurant where I was playing piano told me to go to. This lady told me that I was going to meet and work for Ira Gershwin by name. And then I met the widow of the great concert pianist and humorist Oscar Levant, June Levant. That's because I found this collection of records that had belonged to Oscar Levant in a music store in Hollywood, and this lady I worked with at the piano store got me Mrs. Levant's phone number, and suddenly I'm meeting June Levant, and she tells the Gershwin family about me. They ask to meet me, and there I was suddenly working for Ira Gershwin, whose work I idolized and never thought I'd meet. He was 80 years old and I was 20, and I ended up spending 6 years taking care of his archive of Gershwin memorabilia. And it was my college education, because I never went to college, having gone right to piano bars out of high school. And so Ira taught me most of what I know about popular music and introduced me to his friends who were still alive. So I got to meet Andrei Kostelanetz and Betty Comden and Adolph Green and their close friend Lauren Bacall and so many other people who were his friends. And because of him, doors opened for me, and my life was never the same after that.
No, and his wasn't either, because he was very devastated at that time, depressed,
Yes.
getting older. People had said, Rosemary Clooney said, that you prolonged his life. So I think that he loved having you, and you were meant to meet him, and he was meant to meet you as well. So I think it was a blessing on both ends. But it must have been devastating in 1983 when he passed. What did you do to be able to move on from that? Here was your idol, who was now gone, and what was next for Michael?
Ira Gershwin was not only my idol, but also I was named his literary executor to take care of his work, to perpetuate his legacy. And after he died, I had a falling out with his wife Leonore, who was famously difficult. And so she was able to maneuver me out of the estate and the will. So I thought that I was going to be spending the rest of my life just taking care of the Gershwin estate. And when that ended, I started playing in clubs again. And I was devastated for quite some time, because I thought I knew my path. And working in Los Angeles, I started to meet people playing in nightclubs, and I met Liza Minnelli.
Now, again, is this a coincidence, or was this also meant to be? Because Liza was a light in your life.
When I met Liza, the first thing she said to me was, well, from now on, we're joined at the hip. And I said, yeah, right. Yeah. But she came into this nightclub where I was playing and came in every night, and she got me my first major publicity. She got me on television shows. She hosted my debut in New York.
She had a big party for you, right?
It was pretty amazing, because, as I said to somebody, it's the kind of party that if it hadn't been thrown for me, I certainly would not have been invited to, because the attendees were Gregory Peck and Henry Mancini and Elizabeth Taylor and Joan Collins. I mean, it was an amazing group of people, and I was scared. And Elizabeth, whom Liza had introduced me to a few days earlier, postponed a trip to London to be at my opening just to help with publicity. And so I was helped by a lot of people. And this party was incredible, because suddenly my life changed overnight. With that party and with that attention, I was the flavor of the week or the month or whatever, and I got engagements and got invited to play in New York. As a result of that night, I was asked to make my debut at the Algonquin Hotel, and then my New York career started. And from there came Broadway and came tours and everything. So it all goes back to Liza, who was the goddaughter of Ira Gershwin. Vincent Minnelli, Liza's father, was best friends with Lee and Ira Gershwin, and Ira was best man at the wedding of Vincent Minnelli and Judy Garland. And so it all is interconnected in ways that are pretty amazing.
And did Liza come to your wedding in 2008?
Yes, Liza came to my wedding and sang. And
I was wondering, what song was your wedding song that night?
Oh, Love Is Here to Stay.
Okay.
Love Is Here to Stay.
Would make sense.
Yes.
Yes, and is love here to stay?
I think so.
Okay, well, good.
There's no guarantees. But
No, there's never any guarantees. So Liza Minnelli, do you still see her today? I mean, have you spent time with her recently, or when was the last time you were together?
I see Liza all the time. I spoke to her yesterday. She's been in Los Angeles for a while, and she's doing fantastic. She's been a very true friend through the years, and I think that for people who only know Liza as this superstar, she is a genuinely, deeply caring human being who has done so many things for so many people under the radar. She has helped many people's careers. Like I saw Randy Newman recently, and Randy Newman said that at the beginning of his career, Liza Minnelli helped him. She goes out of her way to help young talent, because when she was starting out, it's ironic because she's the daughter of Judy Garland, but that worked against her. And there were certain people that helped her, and she said, I always said I would give back, and boy, does she.
She does. And you're doing the same. You have a wonderful educational outreach
Yes.
with your foundation.
Yes.
I loved hearing about that, because I feel that we're all, so hungry for the arts in the schools. And what have you learned from the young generation that you've worked with? Share that with us a little bit.
Becoming a coach or a mentor or a teacher has been a great education for me. As has been said many times, teachers learn from their pupils. For one thing, it has given me hope that classic American music in whatever form will survive, because there are a lot of young people that care about it and want to keep it alive. And we have thousands of applicants from all over the country, and then they come to Indiana, where the American Songbook Foundation is headquartered, and we have these seminars and workshops and master classes where I see these young people blossom. And it's not even that they're all going to have music as their livelihood, it just is life-changing in what it does for them. And so there's nothing more fulfilling for me than to see a transformation when a young person learns more confidence or more connection, or gains the courage to express who they are through a song.
It must feel really great to mentor young people when you were mentored by some of the great legends. I mean, they look up to you, like you looked up to Rosemary Clooney,
Yes.
who actually lived next door to Gershwin. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Rosemary was, she called me her sixth kid, and I called her my Beverly Hills mom, which was fine until my mother got a little jealous and sent Rosemary a Christmas card one year that said, "Merry Christmas from Michael's real mom." She was like, okay.
Yes. What was it like going to Rosemary Clooney's house and just popping by? How was that experience for you? Because she must have been, as a second mother to you, she must have been quite impressionable to you.
Rosemary Clooney, she was an earth mother. She also had a mouth on her, and if she didn't like somebody, you knew it. But she was, above all else, a person of tremendous love. And so she was always inviting people over to her house, and her kids were always saying, "Oh, Mom, why did you invite so-and-so over?" She would have these salons. And Rosemary I loved because she had been through a very difficult experience. She had had a serious nervous breakdown, and no one ever thought she would come back from the loony bin, as she called it. And she came back, and so her appreciation for life and her family and for music was great. And so she taught me to relax. She taught me to appreciate the music more on a level that I wouldn't have been able to understand if I hadn't known her. When I did my first album, I asked her if she'd sing a duet with me, and she generously said yes, which in retrospect, was the best thing I could have done because it got airplay because of her. But in the recording session when I was singing the duet with her, she said, "Honey, smile, people can hear it."
You know, music transcends time and space. Do you believe it has the power to heal?
There's no question that music can heal on many, many levels. Scientifically, you can look at what it does for cognitive development, with IQ, with ability to reason. All of that is documented. They are now doing tremendous research for people with brain injury. There is an organization of which I am a participant called the Institute for Music and Neurological Function that is creating scientific data to show how music therapeutically can heal brain damage for people with Alzheimer's. All of this, it's extraordinary. Aside from that, it brings people together in a way that no other art can. One of the things that is missing now is that we have red states and blue states and Democrats and Republicans and all these people that have differences. There was a time in our culture when everybody came together because of music. There was a common bond where people could put their differences aside and they shared the same thing in their hearts. We have a government that devalues it, and so we've lost education of music in schools. But what it does is bring people together on levels where we are able to see what we have in common. And that is sadly what is missing today, and why music is more important now than ever before.
I agree with you completely. You performed at the Philharmonic in Israel, and I wanted to know how you felt being in Israel and the energy that you felt when you were there performing with this great orchestra, because I know you love the big orchestras, but how did that feel for you?
The Israel Philharmonic is one of the greatest orchestras in the world. I was invited to play there by Zubin Mehta, which was a great honor. I sang popular songs. I sang Gershwin and Irving Berlin and Cole Porter. And this orchestra treated that music the same as they treated Beethoven or Bach or Schoenberg or you name it, because they appreciate that aspect of American musical culture more than we do. And so it was, the music was on such a high level, artistically, it was transcendent. And the audience in Tel Aviv at the concerts, they were amazing. They were so supportive and enthusiastic and jubilant to hear this music. And it made me see Israel in a very different way, that this is a place where there is tremendous turmoil, and it is not the way that we see it from outside. The desire on the part of the Israeli people to have togetherness with all the people around them is great, because 25% of the population of Israel is Arab. So there is a great desire to have peace there. And then there's the bureaucracy of the government and all the other things that go on. And what I saw was a society of people that desperately want peace in their lives and in music.
Yes, and so that must have been a great experience for you. You have performed for dignitaries and with some of the most sought-after stars. Was there one person that you really enjoyed sharing the stage with?
The songwriters are the people of whom I am most intimidated, because they are my gods. Meeting Leonard Bernstein and Stephen Sondheim or Burton Lane, Julie Stein, these are people whom I was nervous around. I was not nervous meeting Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, but meeting Julie Stein was exciting. As far as sharing the stage, my most fulfilling times on stage were with Rosemary Clooney.
The way you wear your hat.
Because we had been friends for so long and I loved her voice. I grew up loving her voice, and to be able to sing with her was the most wonderful experience.
Yeah. The last time you performed with her was in London, right? Wasn't that the last time before she passed away?
Yes, I think it was. We were in London. She went back to England after being gone for years, and then we were in Dublin. And it was like being with a rock star, the love that poured out for her, because Rosemary had played at the London Palladium in the 50s, and she belonged to them. She told me that when she went there, Laurel and Hardy were appearing live in vaudeville, and she went to see Laurel and Hardy, and she said she was never so excited to see Laurel and Hardy in person, and that was her greatest memory of being in London.
That's so funny. That is so funny. But everyone loved her. So she was someone who I feel, we'll be talking about her for many years. I really believe that. So the Rainbow Room was a wonderful experience for you going back there, but Feinstein's at the Regency from 1999 to 2012 was just a magical place in New York. It was the hot spot. Share with us, some of the most magical moments that you had there at your club.
One of the great things about having a nightclub is that we ran the gamut. Yes. Rosemary Clooney opened the room, and she set the tone, God bless her. And that was one of the things that helped to put us on the map. Mm-hmm. And you never knew who was going to get up and sing. Liza was there all the time, and she'd get up and do things impromptu. And so there was always that feeling of what's going to happen next.
Are you going to reopen?
Feinstein's will indeed reopen. It's going to be called Feinstein's on Broadway. It's going to be located on 44th Street, right off of 8th Avenue. And Feinstein's is going to be intimate. It's going to also have an after-hours hang, as I call it, because there's no place for people to go, at least people of my generation and people who love theater and love music, show music and classic music, to go and hang out. So we're going to have after hours that'll go till 3 or 4 in the morning with live music and just a place where people can relax and party. And
create new memories about the Broadway shows that they're seeing
yes.
today, I think that's wonderful. You just keep reinventing yourself. All of your tours, 150 plus shows a year, and now you're conducting.
Yes. Conducting came to me in a sort of mystical way with the passing of my dear friend Marvin Hamlisch. I was asked to take his place in Pasadena with the Pasadena Pops, and at first I didn't want to because I'd never done it. But then I felt such a strong sense of Marvin encouraging me to do it. It's hard to put into words, but things happen that I won't go into. So I said yes, I would try it, and it turned out to be a wonderful experience. And an orchestra has been created here at the Kravis Center to give me the opportunity to share with everybody all of this music that I've rescued through the years. So people will hear orchestrations and arrangements of things that they literally cannot hear any other place. For example, the original overture from Judy Garland's Carnegie Hall show, which is a great piece of music we'll be playing. An arrangement of Climb Every Mountain that was conducted once for a recording by Alfred Newman in 1959 that's by one of the deans of Hollywood orchestrators, Herbert Spencer. These pieces of music interpret American popular song in a beautiful symphonic way that the musicians love playing and the audience loves because it is the greatest music ever, and it's a shared experience that gives me tremendous joy. So it's great to do it.
If life is a cabaret, Michael Feinstein, what is your song?
What is my song? The two favorite songs of mine are Love Is Here to Stay and Isn't It a Pity? Isn't it a pity we never met before? To me, life is a continuing adventure. It is something that continues to evolve and unfold, and I am never bored. And I have tremendous gratitude. Gratitude is the thing that is the driving force behind what I do, because without that, there's no point in being here. And so Isn't It a Pity is a song for me of gratitude.
Well, we're grateful to you for really preserving the Great American Songbook and for always reinventing yourself and letting us share in your memories and in your beautiful talents. So thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
But oh my dear, our love is here to stay. Together we're going a long, long way. In time the Rockies may crumble, Gibraltar may tumble, they're only made of clay. But our love is here. Our love is here. Our love is here to stay.